not only did that teach us really quickly what we needed to see, it absolutely showed us what we didn't want.
Yeah.
And that really set the tone for moving forward with engaging property managers. And one of the things when we will have new tenants come into a property, often they'll say, they'll ring, now we've got this couple or we've got so-and-so who will be fit, for the property. What do you think? And I always go back to them and say, look, on paper, that sounds great, but what do you think? Because you're going to be managing them and you're going to be the one having to deal with their dog or their partner or their whatever. How do you feel about it?
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard. Here's your host, Tabitha Bright.
Hello and welcome to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard, where I get to speak to property investors from around Australia about their investing journey. My name's Tabitha Bright and I'm the head of coaching here at Positive Real Estate, where we help people build wealth through property. With over 8,000 clients across Australia and New Zealand, there are some incredible stories to tell, which hopefully make your investing journey that little bit easier and will inspire you along the way. So my guests today are the fabulous Cara and Jen, long-term clients of mine personally that have been with me for about 10 to 12 years. So we discuss the importance of your property manager, especially when tenants try to burn the house down, renovating for profit and a hidden discovery, and the importance of having a quality strategy. Enjoy this conversation with Jen and Cara. Jen and Cara, welcome to the podcast. We are definitely recording. I can see the little red button. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Tab, for having us. Thank you.
So we were talking about these ladies. They've been part of the mentoring and coaching program here at Positive Real Estate for somewhere between 10, 11, 12 years. We were working it out. I'm pretty sure it was probably end of 2011, maybe 2012 you guys joined. So, been super, super honoured to be part of your journey. You've been an absolute pleasure to coach. And you started off with 3 properties. I'll let you guys tell the story about that in a second. And currently you're sitting on around 7, which is just fantastic. So congratulations to you both. It hasn't always been smooth sailing. So do you want to tell me maybe about your first 3 properties, how you made those property choices, some of the story around what happened, particularly with that third one I'm super interested in. Over to you guys.
Well, Jen and I first met and we had separately bought an investment property each.
Yeah.
So we obviously both had an interest there. So I bought one, the first one in East Gosford. It was a townhouse, Central Coast.
Yeah.
Jen then...
So we had actually just got together and I was finalising. So I bought a land and house and land package in it's sort of southern Bendigo area called Golden Square.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying as someone who was renting in inner city Melbourne, trying to live an outward life, trying to keep just spending. And then seeing this money incrementally come out of your account and thinking, what the hell have I done?
Yeah.
And then I guess then we met and we both had a mutual interest in property and we both were, I think we thought we were both a bit special. Like we both came with a property each. We both we knew a bit, but we really didn't. And
it's funny.
When you say how did we each pick our properties? Cara used to live in Gosford. Her dad found the property. Why did I pick Bendigo? I think somebody said it might have been a good spot. That's how we kind of picked them. And then so that led us before we moved in together, we'd been together for just shy of a year. We decided to purchase a property together as tenants in common in Grovedale in Geelong. And it was just an absolute shocker is the best way to describe it. But at the time we bought it, we thought we were just hitting gold. Look at us go. So it was a well, back in the day, it would have been a farmhouse, but fast forward to when we purchased it, which would have been about 2011, give or take. It was a 3-bedroom house with a granny flat out the back, and the property had already been subdivided, so there was a new build at the back as well. So there was a common driveway, basically zero courtyard in a family orientated place. And we just went in saying, we'll just rent them separately. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It was doomed to fail nearly from the beginning. And I guess in principle, it was mostly because the management that we had chosen was a true failure. And one of the most tremendous learnings we had at that time was to manage our managers. So things were going pretty swimmingly in Gosford and Bendigo from a management point of view, but we were consistently having problems in Grovedale, be it the tenants causing issues, the zero communication from the property manager. And that all accumulated when we went to do a site visit with the property manager, opened the front door. The tenants had left. They hadn't vacated. They had absconded. We opened the front door and there'd been a fire in the actual property.
Ouch.
So there was smoke damage to the room. There was clearly flames up above a gas heater that had what looked to be some sort of clothing or plastic item had burnt to the front of the gas heater.
The room was black. Everything was black.
And I remember the property manager saying, just couldn't possibly know what's happened here. And I was like, I can tell you, it looks like there's been a fire in here. And it just set the tone for that property. It was just an absolute nightmare, because not long after that we had new tenants in. It was a multi-generational family.
Obviously. Yeah.
All got fixed.
Absolutely.
Importance of insurance. So that was a big tick. And a tremendous storm had come through Geelong, and in the granny flat, an entire significant chunk of ceiling came down only 6 months, I guess, after we'd fixed it. And then getting somebody in an emergency repair was just borderline impossible. And so we had it made good, but then the tenants, it's kind of a drawn out story, but we ended up in VCAT with them. And so it just was a property that never hit the mark. And the long version of that's what led us to you guys.
Right. Nothing
we
like
met you guys after Grovedale's disasters.
Yeah, we just thought we needed professional property investment advice.
Yeah.
And we did some research around what advice was out there, and we landed on PRE, and we've been with you guys obviously for 10, 11, 12 years.
In fact, Tab, you may not remember this, but we had our first meeting with you, and Cara and I will still talk about this sometimes, because we'd been together for maybe a year. We weren't living together. We had bought this property, disaster.
And I remember test of a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember you saying to us, it's really nice to meet you, so we're just going to ask you a few questions to start.
You were talking about goals, like our goals.
Yeah. It's just so matter of fact. So what school do you want your kids to go to? And both of us like, well, I haven't asked that question yet. I don't know. I was like, do you want kids? I don't know. But it was good.
The fact that you had 3 properties together, that you were fairly well embedded and enmeshed in your relationship.
Of course.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, not
at all.
I just think it showed how much interest we had in property and sort of not much of the other things, right?
But you do have kids now.
Got two.
It was fortuitous. I was foretelling the future. So back to the property in Geelong, that was the lesson, we'll call it, the learning curve. So there's a few lessons to pull out from there, because it was a subdivided property. So you didn't have everything that had been subdivided. You had the property at the front. Was that the
Yes.
original townhouse?
Yeah.
And somebody had subdivided that, put a what we call a battle axe subdivision at the back.
Yeah,
so you had the driveway and the property at the back. And then on your property, on the subdivided piece, they'd also put down a granny flat that you believed when you purchased it that you could get 2 streams of income.
Correct.
But because you were not aware, the council bylaws didn't allow that in Geelong, right? Or Victoria, for a matter of fact. Sometimes people get away with it.
Yeah.
There's the law, and then there's enforcing it. But
I mean, our education up to that point, Tab, had been reading the odd magazine and kind of speaking to each other, going, "Oh, that sounds good. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, yeah. Oh, totally."
A lot of us start there. I had a similar experience, believe it or not. And then the other one you tapped on was managing your manager. So property managers are massive, aren't they? Like if you have a property manager that's not a career property manager, doesn't see themselves embodied as a property manager, and it's a stepping stone to something else, or they're particularly young and they haven't built skills around dealing with tenants, around everything that goes with property management. Because I'll wax lyrical for a second. I have done an interview with one of our property managers, Kayla, on the podcast, and she just talked me through some of the stuff that's happened. She's had some of the most horrendous stuff, like being attacked by gang members. She's been, walked in on self-harm. She's had to deal with domestic violence, with, irate tenants, irate landlords. And you have to be very emotionally mature to successfully navigate the role as a property manager. And then you have to understand all the legalities and, all of that stuff. And so sometimes we see people that maybe underestimate what's involved. I think that's probably the kindest way to put it.
Absolutely. And I guess not only did that teach us really quickly what we needed to see, it absolutely showed us what we didn't want. And that really set the tone for moving forward with engaging property managers. And one of the things when we all have new tenants come into a property, often they'll say, they'll ring, "Now we've got this couple, or we've got so-and-so who will be fit, for the property. What do you think?" And I always go back to them and say, "Look, on paper, that sounds great, but what do you think? Because you're going to be managing them, and you're going to be the one having to deal with their dog or their partner or their whatever. How do you feel about it?" And so that's my kind of go-to now with them. And if they can answer, if they can give that sort of robust, "Oh no, it's going to be great." You feel comfortable going in.
We've also not been afraid to change property managers at all. And we've gone to different property managers because we haven't been happy with the manager. And we've, negotiated rates with other property managers, and we've just with some properties, we've had to go through a few to get who we've got at the moment. And across the portfolio at the moment, we are happy with all of the property managers because we have had to really chop and change as we've needed to.
Skills and interview. It's like job interviewing, right?
Yeah.
And you tapped on having insurance, also super
just
essential.
Here's a lesson for you all listening tonight. Get your insurances sorted.
It's funny. I tell you what, I had a similar experience to you, sort of, in that is that a child?
No, that's a puppy.
It's a new puppy.
I saw something going back and forth. You might see a cat come in. I've shut the door. I had a similar thing in we had 2 townhouses in Bateman's Bay that have been my biggest lessons. Many of you have heard me talk about them over the years. And when the fires went through, I think it was it 2020 the fires went through? Yeah, in Bateman's. I don't know about your Gosford, but the fires came literally within 100 meters of our 2 townhouses. And I remember saying to Vin, "I'm pretty sure I paid the insurance. But you know, when you've held something forever.
Yeah,
Like
you
I've had
question it.
those properties 15 years until recently. And I just got a bit lazy. They didn't cause me too much grief. I just held them, and I was thinking, shit, did I get it updated with the latest? And you're like, shit. And thankfully they weren't damaged by the fire. But I remember sitting up that New Year's Eve, and I was watching the map of the fire as it was in the updates, and I was just thinking, and I just thought, you know what, I can't control this.
No.
If they burn down, they burn down. The most important thing is obviously lives aren't lost, and the tenants were on the beach, but all was well. It ended well.
I mean, it's that kind of thing, and as well, you kind of fall into, once you get past having a few properties, and you have, you know, paperwork, and the paperwork drives me like, you know, nuts.
The downside,
but it's the well, what's that property for, and what's that insurance for? Have we got that? And we keep a spreadsheet that has everything documented. So property, its purchase price, when we bought it, what's owing, equity, lender, blah 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 blah, insurance paid. Yes,
very sensible. Do you update your insurance policy with the latest value of your property if it was to burn down?
Oh, not
that was what I was worried about.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, because I had insured it at the value that it was, and I'm pretty sure it probably went up with inflation. I don't know. And I was sitting there with Vin going, like Vin, my hubby, is very good at doing the accounts, and he's that way inclined, and he gets that joyous joyous task. But it was just that moment where you just go, oh shit, it's about to burn down.
Yeah.
What have we done? And
there
was a moment. There was a moment.
Yeah.
But all was well that ended well on that one, much like yours. And so you guys decided to shift that on, didn't you? So tell us a little bit about that. So the Geelong one you don't hold anymore.
We don't. So we ended up joining PRE, and then we actually bought a duplex.
No, the first one was the first one we bought with PRE was in Western Sydney.
Oh yeah.
We bought a property in Lethbridge Park.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
And it was, I remember we'd been to one of the PRE meetings. They were really talking about Western Sydney as being the next big thing. And being Kara's family are in Sydney and just above that. And we thought, what are they talking about? It's an absolute dive out there. But they seem to know what they're talking about. So we better go and have a bit of a look. And I remember we went around, and it was at Christmas, and we have this really strange thing where we basically buy property in that week between Christmas and New Year. And we found for us, I think we've bought 3 properties that way, I think.
Yeah.
That seems to be when we have time to talk, and then we're like, oh, I think we should go put an offer on that property or whatever, because we've kind of been nattering
So
about
it was a house.
We bought a house in Western Sydney, Lethbridge Park, for $243,000.
It's a 3-bedroom, and Nana had still left her rosary beads on the wall.
Oh.
And it was
a deceased estate.
Yeah.
And $243,000 had been on the market for about 2 months.
Yeah.
And the carpet looked like it was original.
1920. Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was.
Yeah. It was a basic. It had its bathrooms done. It was pretty basic, but we did, and we keep the spreadsheet still, but we did an $18,000 reno. So we painted it, gutted it.
I think we did a lot of it. Ripped the carpets up.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was great because both sets of our parents would come, and we were all just, was
chipping
sandwiches on the front porch and whatever else. And it was, I still remember doing it and thinking, I don't know what we're thinking, like why there's, ambulances running past, and there's just like garbage at the front of houses. But anyway, we went ahead with it, and it was renting when we first, even as is, if we'd done nothing, it was still going to rent at $350 when we.
So what yields that?
Wow, it was by the time we'd done our renovation, we got about $375.
Yeah. Someone do
But that
the
property was
microphone,
also another
do
good
the math.
lesson.
Okay.
That we had some tremendous lessons from that one as well. It was on a main road,
Oh, yeah.
which is why it hadn't moved.
Yeah.
I think in that 2 months.
Yeah.
But that wasn't necessarily
fine,
a
really.
big thing. It
What-
had a bus stop just up the road. It was close to
Yeah.
Mount Druitt. But at the back of the shed,
Yeah.
I remember being out there, I was with my dad and saying, it's just strange. It just sort of looks like the back wall doesn't quite like meet where the end of the shed is. And I remember
Because inside the garage was smaller than when you walk outside of it, and the
There was
length of it looked longer.
Like there was
than
a
you-
secret wall or something.
So we were sort of poking around and
it was like
found out that there was a secret wall.
it was like out of MacGyver or some sort of TV show. You would have this wall at the back of the shed on wheels that just opened, and
It was like literally the wall, like the borders
Yeah.
of wall.
just shifted and was on wheels. And I remember sticking my head in and thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm going to find in here. Hopefully jewelry or something amazing.
It's like gold Kruger.
I know. Put my phone in, and clearly someone had a state-of-the-art hydroponic setup in the back of the
No.
Previously, and we don't know if Nana that passed on was, who.
Maybe Nana.
What was
We don't know what the situation was, but it was no longer utilized hydroponic setup.
And it was what we'd ended up doing is just sealing it shut and just drilling it closed and hoping the tenants never found it.
Wow.
It was at moments like that, we're like, do we have to call the police? Like, what do we have to do? Because I don't really know. I mean, and then we were thinking maybe it's a pit for cooking meat in or something.
It was not a pit for cooking meat.
It had water taps.
So you
and
got the local drug dealers dealing out of your shed.
Absolutely.
Bridge Park. So what did you buy that for?
$243.
$243.
We ended up selling that 2 years ago now to buy our principal place of residence in Canberra.
Yeah.
We sold that for $590.
Oh yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So if I go 375 times 52 divided by what did you say? 243. Yeah, so an 8% yield.
And that was so PRE put us onto that, and that was our first experience with PRE, and it really set the tone then for working with you guys, the drug dealers, and but I guess what it did is it really did show us that there's an entire science behind this, and an entire methodology, and somewhere that, and this was the big thing, even though we had never lived in the properties we'd bought, we wouldn't mind going there or visiting there. This was so off our radar. Yeah. And
only put on our radar, obviously from PRE.
Yeah.
But we did our own deal.
Yeah.
But it paid off in the end.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. And so I think what was happening in Sydney at the time, and we're beginning to see a similar thing happening now, is there was what we called yield variation. Do you remember me talking you through that? Where the rental is unusually high for the value of the property. Yeah. And so we know when that happens, when you get that yield variation, because normally in Sydney, right, if you went to buy in Sydney now, you'd be doing well if you got a 3.5% yield.
Yeah.
Because the value of the property compared to the rent you get. So it was the other way around when you guys purchased. So the thinking around that was that we were going to see some strong capital growth, which you guys did see, because in approximately 7 years, that property pretty much doubled in price, which is an unusual result. Normally, it can take 10 to 15 years for a property to go through a full cycle and double in value. And we knew that due to the yield variation, like an 8% yield in Sydney, given you'd spent 20 grand on a reno, which I haven't allowed for, but even a 7% yield. I mean, that that's nuts. That's cash flow positive.
It was. And it really balanced, I think, everything that was happening with our Geelong property at the time. So it really brought balance to our portfolio, and I think that's been for us one of the keys. Is having balance in the portfolio. So having some that are income generating, it makes me more comfortable, and I'm the more probably risk adverse. Kara's more like, just go,
let's buy it.
Yeah. So it does.
You balance.
It brings a nice balance for us. Yeah.
Yeah, you need it. You need it. If you've got two gung-ho people, that's a nightmare, trust me, from a perspective. That is when you see the whites of my eyes. It scares me. No, that's awesome. And so so we had a couple of lessons with the drug dealers and the fire, and you were saying before I was recording that the property in Geelong, sometimes you'd have tenants and you'd find you had 14 people living in the roof. And so one of the things Sam talks about, and I'll bring it back to some of the strategy behind positive real estate, is he talks about a flight to quality, and that the best property that you can afford, and it's not to denigrate low income. I know there's a lot of people on low incomes that are just fabulous citizens. Often hand in hand with low income come social problems. And that's just because everyone's stressed to the eyeballs far more. There's obviously whole cycles on poverty that we can talk about. But and so if you can afford to buy better quality property in areas where the councils can afford to provide amenities and services and schools and all of that kind of stuff, it's not that you don't have social problems and difficult tenants. It's just that the propensity for people to be able to afford capital growth to go up, to pay more because they're emotionally connected to a property, they will stretch. They can afford to pay more for rent. They can weather things like losing a job and COVID and still pay the rent. And so it reduces the stress for us as landlords. And I think we're all human. None of us want to cause pain to our tenants. We want to look after our
absolutely. And I guess, everything that you've said, and we both would wholeheartedly say, so we're both in, I guess, health and social work industries. And we both are particularly passionate about some subgroups within community who don't have the same abilities and experience and opportunities that we do. And so whilst we've actively tried to seek refugee and asylum seeker tenants as well.
Good on you.
We have a balance in terms of, so we have some regionally based properties and some central based properties. And I guess for us, it is about finding that right tenant, despite their background and history and everything else. But I do agree, it is undeniable that when we have put more money in,
absolutely,
that we have had a better outcome. It just and in fact that's a nice segue in a sense that we've just bought from PRE in the last 6 months, in fact Christmas of course. We bought at North Lane in North Melbourne, so we've bought one of the apartments there. And that is because we had to let go of a couple of properties to get into our current principal place of residence. We felt like we had a missing blue chip. And it was an interesting pick at the time. PRE were talking about Point Cook versus North Melbourne. And we just felt North Melbourne, from a blue chip point of view, inner city, was
to balance our
portfolio. Well, you guys have made some very conscious choices, and I love that you do it with a social heart. It's really nice to work with that. It's heartwarming, and kudos to you guys. What else? Anything else you wanted to share, or I can ask you my favorite wrap-up question, but were there were there any other gems?
I guess we would go through ebbs and flows in interest in property, and life like happens like that. So we've had 2 kids. We have a 6 and a 4-year-old. And I remember at some point when we had at that time like a 1 and a 3-year-old, and you know, as we were talking about before, like paperwork's coming in, insurance or whatever. And I remember saying to Carl, I don't care if we just sell all the properties and just never do this again, in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
And I guess it is hard work, and it does take, I guess, commitment.
It does.
And that ebbing and flowing of interest and stepping out is actually, in my mind, it's a healthy thing, because you're not
100%.
In it the whole time.
you're not in
Well,
it
for us.
yeah, and you're not like so invested, like what's it doing today or this week. It really should just be a check and set. Have we got the right manager? Have we got the right insurances? Have we got the right tenants?
How's the interest rate going?
Yeah.
Are we with the right lender at the moment? What's the rent? So just doing a bit of an annual
and
Refresh.
hats
check
off
and balance,
to
really.
Cara, because she has become the guru at doing all of that. And it becomes like a meeting at the end of the day. So I've gone through this and this. Are you happy? Sign here. It was like, it's great. But I guess that would be my takeaway is people say to us regularly, oh my God, aren't you worried? Aren't you freaking out? I'm like, no, I'm not freaking out. We will shift something if we need to. We're not emotionally invested, and we go with the ebbs and flows as we need. And I think that's kind of it. And now we have kids. Like, one of the things we won't do now is we won't do a renovation while the kids are little. It's just too much for us. And so that strategy now is off the cards for us. Yeah. And that's okay. We're totally okay with that.
It's just at a different time for us. That was great. But now, no way.
I honestly think if Cara had to pick up another paintbrush, we might divorce. But that's but that's, I guess that would be the takeaway. You're in it for the long run. You're not in it for the, you know, there's a lot of talk about interest rates and property prices and all those things right now. I kind of just don't listen to the news.
Yeah.
Just turn it off.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put it out there. You guys want a coaching job? You've got one.
One day, Tab, I'll keep you to that.
I'm 100% serious. Jason Witten, I'm putting you on ladies. No, it's some really wise words. And you know what? The other person that would love what you've just said is Sam Saggers, because he says the biggest problem with property investing is the people that invest.
Yeah.
Because you start tracking it exactly like you said. You start worrying about when the capital growth's coming. You start looking for every problem. You look at something else and you think, God damn it, why did I buy this one? I should have bought that one. There's always going to be something better. There's always going to be something that you skated and didn't buy and that saved you from a disaster. It's just life. And it's like being married, right? You can't go around wondering if there's somebody better just over the horizon.
Best not to. No, best not to.
But property investing, same scenario. And you've got to be in it for the long haul. And I think, you know, as perfect as clients can be, you guys are it. And I'm not just blowing hot air. I'm saying that live recorded.
I will say, Cara keeps it real. So I do have a little mini meltdown around just, I don't know, after Christmas, after we've either bought something or whatever, and she'll sort of say, bring it back down. The tempo is a little high. You just need to. So it is a good balance, and I think it is okay to feel that anxiousness from time to time. It actually keeps it real. But just let it go. Let it.
Or your coach.
Yes, absolutely.
You've got a couple of us on the hook at the moment, haven't you?
We do.
We've got Karen as well.
Thank you, Karen.
I said to Karen, I was like, I'm just going to poke that one and make her a little bit jealous. I said, I'm interviewing Karen Kinchler, just so you know. They were mine first.
Yeah.
But look, all jokes aside, so fantastic advice. Asking that classic podcast question, if I can get my words out. If you were to go back in time and see Cara and Jen, young Cara and Jen, what would the advice outside of what you've just told us, what would be the advice you would give?
I think invest earlier.
Yeah.
And
I would have liked to. I mean, we hadn't met, but we we
and
started
do your due diligence and your research more than property magazines.
and I think that was a single magazine that we thought we were like pretty top, like just even buying it from the news agency or whatever we didn't. Yeah, do your due diligence, and that actually means call the council, speak to people in the neighbourhood, like whatever it is. Look at
who's going to be renting the place, who's going to
who's your market,
who's the market. Yeah,
we were super raw on that, and just looking at the dollar value of what we thought we could get without going in. And so I guess, yes, it would definitely be to invest early, and I think we all would think that, but I guess for me it's also just trusting your instinct. So even though so with Lethbridge Park, I still remember driving there and saying, are these guys legit, honestly?
And in PRE.
As in PRE, we just not long joined them, and we were driving through and there's couches everywhere and bins overflowing. I remember thinking, are they serious? But it wasn't until we got in there.
And I wouldn't have you doing that now.
But do you know, the funny thing was, I remember I was pulling something out, maybe an old curtain or something, onto the front yard.
Yeah.
And an elderly like member who'd lived in that community for some time said, you're going to do really well here. Yeah. This place has changed so much since I've been here. And it was strange because it wasn't you guys per se. You gave us the direction, but it was actually that person who I went, okay,
settled your nerves.
We're going to be okay here. Yeah. And it was that inherent, and we just had to let it go and do its thing. So I think it's just trust in the process.
Yeah, but ask lots of questions.
Absolutely.
And keep asking questions, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that with that whole flight to quality thing of Sam's, that what we learned is that people often want to invest, but most investors don't have or don't want to have the capacity to deal with some of the stresses that you guys have had with your more creative investing. It's a very small portion. You know, most of us have busy lives. Most of us are holding down careers, children, all sorts of other stuff in our lives. And to add creative investing where there are more challenges just by the nature of it, most of us don't want that. You guys, you were starting out, you know, you were just coming together. We had a smaller budget to play with. Even back then in Sydney, you know, if you wanted blue chip in Sydney, you would have been looking at 700K. 500K bought you for Kellyville, right? So Roseland. So you know, you've done really, really well with your purchases. We as a company probably stay clear of some of that lower price point property for exactly the experiences that you guys have had and the challenges that it brings, coaching and all of those things. Doesn't mean that clients don't do it, but often will get people to save for a bit longer or to improve their servicing rather than buy something that's on the cheaper side. With those yields, you can almost just not really argue it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think we presented that yield to you at one point. You're like, I think just go. Yeah,
because I think 6 was still considered good, and you guys were looking at 7.5, and it was that was awesome. I'm so pleased you did well on that one, and across the board. Well, ladies, anything else you wanted to add before I wrap it up?
No, I think so. Appreciate everything you guys have done for us. It's been a genuine pleasure to be part of. And people ask us, how did you get involved and what did you do? And it was like, well, it was kind of natural for us, but it was really through you, Tab, and your leadership and direction. And I think we just personally get along with you beautifully. And it's just led to this synergy of property. So it's been great. And friendship.
Absolutely. I still have to have you over to dinner at my place when you're next down.
Love that.
There's cats that can keep the kids busy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies. It's been an absolute pleasure. And give me a call sometime. Don't be strangers. I know you're busy and you got Karen, but always here.
No worries. Thanks for having us, Tab.
Thank you. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya. Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.